Execute, execute.
Omega, I copy. Alpha Echo 1-4, Alpha Echo 1-4, over.
We made contact at Alpha Foxtrot 1-3. Alpha Foxtrot 1-3. Okay.
Hey, what's up everybody? This is Reed with Rapid Response Training, and I'm here talking about comms, radios. So, radios are pretty complicated, but they don't really have to be. So I'm going to try and break it down to like principles. So, to talk on a radio, you basically have to have the radio itself, power source, like battery, and an antenna, right? So that's bare minimum. I can grab this and talk into it. It has a microphone and speaker built into it, and it'll transmit through the antenna and go talk to somebody, and they can talk to me. So, however, if you were to be doing some fighting or prepared to do that sort of thing, or you know, it could be some other context too, where I want to have my hands free. I don't want to have this out. We might need some other equipment, right? So basically what I want to do is have some sort of a microphone that's near enough to my mouth where it's going to pick up the sound. And I want to have a push to talk somewhere on my body. So a button I can click and make the radio transmit that is accessible, easy to get to, and I want those to have some sort of a cord, right, between those, so that I can have the radio conveniently out of my way in some sort of a pouch or in my pocket, but I've got the push to talk accessible, and then I also want to be able to hear the radio, so like something to put the sound into my ears directly instead of just like coming out the face of the radio into whatever. And if it's like somewhere, you know, it's down here in my pocket, I have it cranked way up to hear it, and then it's like super loud for everybody. So yeah, that's kind of the principle of how this is working. So I'll talk about what I advocate as far as a quality setup is a Yeasu VX6. It is a ham radio. You can, some people do Mars mods to them so they can transmit on some other stuff. And excellent radios, a lot of good features, but they're waterproof. So that's a huge deal. Because, you know, I might have to be outside, right? So if I'm outside, things are humid, things are wet. Yeah, so very durable, very robust, and waterproof, which is huge. So this one happens to have a big whip antenna on it from Zulu Bravo M2 Industries. I got this from Evan at Radio Made Easy, and he advocated for it. What makes it better than signal stick or some other type of like the Abri whip antennas that look like the military ones? What makes it better than that? I don't know. Evan was like, this is the one you need, and he's smart, and I don't know radio stuff that well. So I got this. It works. It's pretty flexible, which is cool. You're not gonna hurt it. So I like that. And this is on a BNC connector, which is also really great. So it's on a quick disconnect. It's actually so quick to disconnect that it's a little dangerous because it's fun to like sit there and play with. So anyway, yeah, so that's the radio I recommend. And then to make this to do what I was talking about with a push-to-talk that's convenient and something to go into my ears, something to talk into. So here's my solution, is Peltor Commtacs. These are some Peltor Commtac IIIs. I'll go ahead and throw them on for the old demonstration purposes. So these are active hearing protection, so they don't block out noise unless it's like gunfire or explosions or something super loud. They obviously have a microphone put right in front of my mouth, so I don't have to hold anything up to my face in order to talk. And then they have these down leads. So these are to plug into the push-to-talk. So this is an MSA body push-to-talk, like the old military style U94, maybe it's called. But it's been wired for the Yeasu, right? So that it's the threaded, I think it's a 3.5 millimeter with a gasket that works with that Yeasu. So basically I would clip this to some gear. I would take my down lead, plug that into there, and then this end is in my radio. And now the radio talks directly into my ears. I can speak directly into the microphone, and I can have this push-to-talk somewhere on my body that's convenient to go ahead and key that radio. So that's what I advocate for a fighting radio setup. So there is another way that, well, there's a couple different ways you can do this. But unless you have a dedicated headset, it's going to be pretty difficult. There are add-ons that don't work great, like on walkers or Howard lights, where you can run a microphone. Basically what that does is you end up paying like 4 times the cost of the headset for all these add-ons to make it work. I don't recommend that. Their Peltor Commtacs are super expensive. This is a pair of Commtac IIIs that I got used. So that's a good way to do it. There's also some other, I have a friend, Mike Fiore at Bulletin, who's selling a European headset that in his experience has worked as well as Commtac 5s. So, but basically this is the way to do it. There are other ways to do it. This is going to be one that a lot of people are familiar with, the old Baofeng UV5R. Again, I have an antenna. This is a signal stick antenna, and this is one of the super old school ones back when they're like still 3D printing them. So good antenna, and I have an earpiece on this. So I've got a cord coming from the radio up here, and I've got a mic, so I can go ahead and clip this somewhere on my body and click the button and talk into it. And instead of a headset, it's just running up to an earpiece that goes into my ear. So I could wear this, the super secret agent earpiece, right? So I could wear this with no hearing protection, or I could throw a plug in my other ear, right? And have this kind of serve as pseudo ear. That is gonna, yeah, you're gonna go deaf basically. But, or the way that, here, let me do that. The way that you could make this work is to get your headset. It probably wouldn't be Commtacs, but like whatever your headset is, and go ahead and pop that over and just run the cord out from underneath. Okay, so now this can be just your walkers, your Howard lights, whatever, your Peltor Sport Tacs or whatever, and running the cord down from underneath, right? So the headset is completely independent of this whole thing. It's only serving as ear protection. So you can do that. The other thing you can do is a speaker mic. So I don't have one here, but basically instead of the super secret agent microphone, it's like the big lapel mic that you would see cops wear, or firemen, or I don't know who else wears them, like lifeguards, right? But that big speaker mic, except the problem with that is that's still just blaring noise. So you take and run an earpiece into that speaker mic, right? So it's talking into your ear, and then you're talking into the speaker mic. So there are also some cables that you can connect a speaker mic into a headset and skip the whole earpiece part. Again, the problem with that is like the cables are crazy expensive and everything else. So it just really is not a great option. So why don't I recommend the Baofeng type radios for this type of use? Is they are you get what you pay for. So it's like a $25 radio, or $35 now maybe, and they suck. So they break all the time. They're the most susceptible to water. Sometimes they break just from humidity, which is pretty bad. So I don't recommend this. Everybody has them though, so that's cool. Which is another reason I really like the Yeasu. I can talk to a Baofeng on my Yeasu, right? So all my buddies that have Baofengs, I can talk to them on my radio. I don't have to stoop to their level, so to speak. It's not stooping to their level, but I don't have to use some subpar equipment to talk to them. I can use my good equipment. So anyway, I'll talk a little bit about more gear setup here, and how it's all going to work together, as well as just some tips and tricks. All right, so back in the plate carrier, the infamous plate carrier. So as far as placement on the body, one place that's really good to put radios is on the inside of your cummerbund, in the negative space where that your front plate is. I think that's a really good spot to put the radio. It's accessible to you, and there happens to be a little bit of gap there anyway. So I like that. A couple of considerations is antenna. What are you gonna do with that antenna? So you can see I've got my Yeasu behind this spud pouch, okay? And I need that antenna to go a certain way. So potentially that's like in my armpit. It actually isn't bad, but so what I can do is face the radio outboard, and now it's more up in front of my chest, right? So that's something to think about. You'll notice obviously I've got the stubby antenna, and performance-wise is a worse antenna. However, if I'm talking to people that are really close, this is gonna be fine. And I may intentionally want to throttle some of my signal, so people who I don't intend to talk to aren't picking up my traffic, right? I'm keeping it a little bit, what do you call it? Not covert, I don't know. Yeah, I'm not broadcasting over, so that's something to consider. Cattail antennas are similar in that sense, where they're like real bendy. You can weave them through MOLLE and whatever else you want to do, which is convenient. They don't propagate very well. So, but anyway, again, the cool thing about the BNC connectors, that quick disconnect, so I can go ahead and, if I'm like, oh, I actually need to talk to somebody way far away, I can go ahead and take this antenna off and slap on my whip antenna. So obviously you can see this is big and in the way. So what are we gonna do, right? We're talking about gear setup and how to use this. Run this up under a shoulder pad, and this one has like a elastic strap on it, which is pretty nice. So is this ideal? No, like if it's straight vertical, I'm gonna get better signal going out, but it's pretty good, and it's keeping it out of my way. It's not like banging around, hitting me, whatever. So another thing on gear setup, you want your radio on your non-shooting side. So I don't want to be smashing my rifle stock into this. I don't want to be smashing my rifle stock into my push-to-talk. So yeah, this should probably be on your non-shooting side, I would say, as a principle. So I'll go ahead and throw that stubby antenna back on. The way I have this set up currently is not the way I want it, but I'm using what I got. So I have a radio pouch. It's a 511 radio pouch attached to the inside of this cummerbund, okay? And that's not how I think it should be. I think it should be in a wing pouch that's attached to the front plate bag that hangs off the side that the cummerbund goes over. So Spirit Systems, Shaw Concepts, Faro Concepts, a ton of people make wing pouches, Axle Advanced, which essentially it just hangs a pouch off the side of your carrier, but it's attached to the front, and then your cummerbund goes over the top. So the reason for that is there's a couple reasons. First of all, I have my right side totally slick because I don't want it to get in the way of a pistol. So what that means is my left side is full and it's really heavy on the cummerbund. So I'm getting some flop, as you can see. And yeah, just not ideal. So if I can get some of the weight off the cummerbund and put it on the plate bag where it's better supported, that would be a good thing. Also, the way this push-to-talk has to be routed, so for cable management, I've got this coming inside the front plate bag, over the shoulder, it's under the shoulder pad, into the back plate bag, and then out of the cummerbund, right, into the radio. So the downside here is that's a really long way for that cable to go. So when I take the radio out of the pouch to like change channels or whatever, this is how much slack I have. So I can honestly barely get to it to mess with it. Really, really not ideal. So also, I basically have to spin the radio on and off the push-to-talk when I do that. So yeah, it's really not great. What would be better is if I had it in a wing, I could route the cable through the front plate bag and have it sitting right there, and I could have as much slack as I wanted. And everything's right in front of me. So with all that slack, I could probably twist the cable too instead of having to turn the radio. So food for thought there. Yeah, so the other thing about the stubby antenna is like for storage, if I'm putting this in a bag, stubby's great. It's not gonna get damaged. Yeah, it's just awesome. Donning and doffing, like taking this on and off, the stubby makes total sense. So that's the antenna that lives on this radio, and then I have a whip in my admin pouch. So yeah, I'll talk about chest rigs and then some tips and tricks here. All right, so talk about chest rigs. So this one, just want to point out that there's not really any point of having a stubby antenna on here. Just the way that things are, everything's like flexible and loosey-goosey. And where the antenna sits, it happens to be right where your harness is anyway. So I think it just makes sense to run it through the webbing of the harness and just kind of keep it locked down there. Just some thoughts on chest rigs. As far as radio pouches go, it's really hard to find pouches that are sized for these small ham radios. it's easier to find them sized for the extended batteries. On the Baofengs, this is a more standard size of radio. Obviously, not every battery for the Baofeng is extended, and then the Yeasus don't have that option. So some type of spacer is usually a good idea if you can't find the right size pouch. Also, if it's going to be against your body, like this is an interior pouch, it is inside that thing 3 right there. How that's riding against your rib cage can be pretty uncomfortable. So something that's padded is nice, or like sticking some foam down in there, or just being careful not to like put stuff, adjust it, or put stuff on here that's going to smash that into your rib cage more than it needs to. So just some thoughts on that. And then I'll talk about the Baofeng real quick. So this is, everybody's got these. So here's some tips and tricks. This push to talk, you can just rip this push to talk off the side of the radio. So if you've got a cable plugged in, hot micing is a problem on these radios. Like you put it in a pouch, you go prone, you twist around, move around, you're gonna inadvertently press this button a whole lot. Like it's very exposed. It's not a very good design. It's easy to press, but this plastic cover you can pull off. You're not breaking the radio. The push to talk will still function. There's just not a button covering it, right? So it's like down in there, which is perfect because you can't accidentally hit it. So that I think is something great for the Baofeng. There's also the old like Ranger band mod. So if you get like a inner tube, you cut a strip, just a little piece from the inner tube, it's like a really big strong rubber band, and you can put it over the push to talk. You just got to make sure or over the connection here, you just got to make sure you don't put it over the button and you're pressing the button, right? Although I guess if you rip that off, you wouldn't have that problem. So, but you put on there and it kind of squeezes it in so it can't get pulled out accidentally. So that's something good. And then for waterproofing, like Ziploc bag mod is real. So put this in a Ziploc bag, zip it up, use some electrical tape, and you can make that happen. One thing that can also work if, for whatever reason, you're not gonna be pulling buttons off, maybe it's not your radio, somebody handed it to you to use or whatever, is something like a Gatorade cap. I've done this before, taking a Gatorade cap, putting it here, and then wrapping electrical tape around it and then the connector, and it's keeping them both on. And the Gatorade cap is preventing these buttons from being pressed, while simultaneously, like, the tape is keeping everything together. So just a couple, one thing to be concerned about, if you've got this earpiece or plugged into a headset or something, you don't have to worry about covering up this speaker on the front of the radio here. But let me see if I can point it out. So I'll use this. So right here is a little light. I think I have this set one to no backlight. Yeah, of course I do, because I'm so tactical. But wow, this, yeah, the lighting here is terrible. Anyway, right here there's a little light. Yeah, I'll just put it super close. There's a hole, tiny hole underneath the light, and that's the microphone. So that you would not want to block. All of this is just a speaker. There's one pinhole right here. That's the microphone. You wouldn't want to block that. So there's some ideas to make the Baofeng a little bit better if you had to use it. other things. So here, I'll unplug so we can hear. There we go. So I'm gonna switch how do I switch from channel to frequency mode? So frequency mode is gonna be the one that we're probably concerned about the most. We're gonna meet up with some guys and they're gonna be like, hey, I'm on 69420, and you're like, okay, cool. How do I plug 69420 into this, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and press VFO, this red one on the front, and it's gonna take me into frequency mode. It's just gonna say numbers, right? It's gonna say 69420. If I press it again, I'm gonna get channels. So there'll be a name of something, or of course I've got this programmed. Yeah, so like FRS04, right? So go ahead and press that. Oh, see, and we just got some traffic. So we're gonna want that in frequency mode, right? So the other thing that we're gonna wanna do is be able to lock our keypad so that we can't inadvertently mess up that. So that button is this one down here. It's the pound button, and you can see there is a key on there. So if I press and hold that button, there'll be a little key pop up by the battery indicator on the screen, and now that's locked. So I can press all these buttons and nothing happens. I can even press this one and nothing happens, and that one, and that one. Okay, so none of that's gonna do anything until I press and hold and unlock. So that's gonna be key on this radio. One other mod I've seen people do is take a rubber band and you know how you like double up or triple up a rubber band to make it really, really tight. So I've seen dudes do that underneath the volume control, because you wouldn't want this to inadvertently get turned off. And then if you've got an earpiece in, I can tell you from personal experience, if it gets turned up all the way, that really sucks too. And all of a sudden dudes are screaming in your ear. You don't want that. So that just prevents this knob from turning quite so easy, which is kind of nice. So, and then there's a bunch of settings in here as well, like turn off the backlight, turn off the beeps, all that stuff. I don't want that. So, and then when it comes to the Yeasu, I will tell you the same, basically the same thing is, put this back on because I'm going to turn this radio on. So this one is very, very nice because a lot of the issues that the Baofeng has, this does not have. Oh, see, I've got it locked. Oh, that's the wrong button. Aha. There we go. I figured it out. I'm the world's greatest detective. So right here, you can see I've got a channel in there. I press VM. That's gonna be the same thing as this red VFO button, right? It's gonna change me from memory to frequency. So memory, frequency, cool. Now I can type in my 69420 or whatever I'm gonna do. And now it's in the bottom left. It looks like a nuclear reactor symbol. I'm gonna press and hold that until I get a lock indicator on my screen. And now these buttons are locked and I'm not gonna inadvertently change my setting. So again, I think those are the two most important buttons. Obviously power button, right? That's a little different on this one. One quick tip about this radio, if you screw up the lock and you give it a half press, you get a Roger beep, which is kind of annoying. So let me see if I can demonstrate that. All right, you hear that? So anytime I key up, it's gonna beep, which is annoying. So Go ahead and press that again. No problem. And then press and hold for the lock. So hopefully this helped. Again, I'll say one more time on radios, I want them to be durable and like, I don't want them to break. So waterproof is a big part of that. I want them to have a good antenna, not whatever they came on it usually is not that great. Some sort of power source, a battery, and then if I'm gonna fight with it, I wanna put it somewhere on my body and have something to talk into, some sort of microphone. I want the sound to go into my ears, so either a headset or an earpiece, something of that sort, and a way to key the radio without having to touch the actual radio in the pouch or pocket. Again, I think some Peltor Commtacs, Yeasu VX6, being that it's robust, durable, waterproof, and these U94 MSA body military style push-to-talks. I know Disco 32 makes these. I get mine from Radio Made Easy. He's a friend of mine. He knows what I need. I don't have to guess, hey, do I need this one or this one? I'm just like, hey bro, this is my radio, this is my headset. And he's like, I got it, they're on the way. And they're also cheaper and supposedly better. I don't know about that, but that's what he says, and he's my buddy. So go get some radio training, radiomadeeasy.com. He's pretty cool. He will teach you all the stuff about the stuff. He will make you be able to make it work. Really, it's like opening the door to the vast realm of possibilities where it's like, it's getting you to understand the language so that you know where to search for the answers to the questions that you have. Or when somebody gives you an answer, you know what they're saying, because radio people don't speak English, they speak radio. So, yeah, let's see what else. All right, before I sign off of this, I did want to mention, this is the setup I used in the small unit tactics class at Tactical Response. I used the Yeasu VX6. I had actually used one radio with a whip antenna and one with a stubby antenna, and then these MSA push-to-talks from Radio Made Easy and my Peltor Commtac IIIs. I really was paranoid about communications issues going into that class. I'd heard from 100 dudes that had taken it that is a very, very common problem. Everybody's got radio issues, like people are hot micing all the time, you can't make the radios work. So I was very paranoid going into the class about that. I expected problems. I had zero problems. My radios worked 100%. It was very, very easy. Like, I don't know, it was great. So I highly recommend this stuff, and obviously it's an intense class. It's one of the harder ways to test your gear, and it worked 100%, no problems. One thing I did do is I ended up ripping off the tip. This had like a little nub, so I'll have to repair that. It's not the fault of the antenna, it's because I was like jamming it through a shoulder pad because I was too lazy to like undo it and then like ripping it back out of the shoulder pad, so I ended up ripping the tip off. But yeah, so again, the tips I shared about VFO mode, frequency versus channel mode, and then being able to lock your keypad was big. And then some of the mods. So we had, most of our team was running Baofeng UV5Rs. We had 3 dudes with Yeasus, and then a couple of guys with some non-UV5R Baofengs. But basically what I talked about, the old Gatorade cap trick, pulling off the push-to-talk, all that stuff worked well. And most of those dudes are running earpieces under ear protection, regular ear protection. I think there was maybe 2 guys that had like an add-on microphone to their like Howard lights or their walkers or whatever. So anyway, yeah, it doesn't matter. If you got Baofengs, use those. If you got, maybe you got some digital encrypted, you know, $6,000 Motorola like I used to use at work, great. Yeah, learn how to use it. And this is like a big rabbit hole. I'm still learning. So yeah, I'll say it again, get training, radio made easy. All right, back to the video. Shoot, move, and communicate. So when it comes to tactical operation, we talk about shooting, moving, communicating. Typically that is in reverse order, right? So the most important thing, the thing we're gonna need to do first and most often is communicate, right? Then the second is move, and then finally is shoot. And usually in training, because shooting is sexy and it's fun and we like it, we do that, we prioritize that. We should be prioritizing some communications. Learn how to do that, because if you're out there by your lonesome, or you got people you can't talk to, you may as well be by your lonesome, and that is probably not a super survivable way to conduct business. So get your radio. If it's a Baofeng, go nuts, dude. Baofengs, like, especially to start learning the radio, start understanding how it works, how to use it, all that stuff, great. Also, these are good because I can buy a whole bunch of them and I can just hand them out to people. So like, I can hand one to the neighbor at the end of the block. So if he sees something coming, he can let me know, right? And maybe I know before they're at my doorstep. And then he can also call me for help, right? So it's like you know, everybody wins. Yeah, so get some communications, get some training, and I guess that's all I got. So don't do this by yourself. Talk to your friends and let them help you. Don't be weird.